Hello, OMIS students. This is a quick introduction to Microsoft Access from me, your professor, Dr. Downing. The logo looks like this. On your start menu of your PC, it is a red A. It's got a little cylinder there. It's a part of the Microsoft Office suite. Might be a tile like this. The reason for the cylinder is that Access is a database. In particular, it is a relational database management system. Why do we want to know this? We found that businesses have problems getting answers to both simple and complex questions about their business. And businesses want business intelligence, which is like having a brain, a business brain, knowing about your business and the context of your business. And then they want to do data analytics or big data analytics, an exploding new field that we work with a lot in the OMIS department that gives insights into the business. You can't move toward either of these if you don't have your business information organized intelligently and effectively. A database, which Microsoft Access is, helps you do that. So the problem is we found that businesses can't get answers efficiently. Wilson Sporting Goods famously gave 5 different answers to the question, how many customers do you have, when they were on a call with Wall Street analysts. That is embarrassing. 5 different answers to that fundamental simple question, how many customers do you have? And how is that possible? How can some of this be possible? Well, partially to blame are spreadsheets, which are awesome. This is not a criticism of spreadsheets. This is an explanation. If all of your data is on one spreadsheet, Excel or some other spreadsheet is definitely your best tool. But spreadsheets don't integrate well. They don't combine well. All these mean the same thing. So if you have many data sources, you might need a relational database like Access. Let's say this another way. Think about here, this is the confused CEO of Wilson Sporting Goods, and let's say the stores in different cities keep a spreadsheet. People have been screaming, paper is bad, and people listened and they went with what they're familiar with, spreadsheets. Most people know how to use those. So I took a vacation. I went to the San Francisco store, bought a football. They have a spreadsheet with many columns, name, purchase amount, product, SKU number, email address of customer, address of customer, whatever. But one of the columns is my name, and they enter me as Chuck Downing. That's fine. Then I go visit my daughter in Boston, and I buy a tennis racket, and it says on my credit card, Charles Downing. So in the customer name column, they enter Charles Downing. That's fine. Then I come home to Chicago, and this happens to me a lot. Unfortunately, when they say, what's your name, sir? I say Chuck Downing, and they type Downey. Now, you've got an analyst here, wherever the headquarters is, and these 3 sheets come in. They say, send us your customer and product purchase information. They all send their spreadsheets. And a good analyst might say, hey, the addresses of all 3 of these guys are the same. That's the same person. This had to be a data entry error. So we have one customer. But it's very possible to see, because computers are literate, meaning if one character is off, a computer says that's a different thing. So if somebody just copied and pasted and put these together and made one big spreadsheet, Chuck Downing, Charles Downing, and Chuck Downey would be 3 different rows. So that less careful analyst might tell the CEO, we have 3 customers. And you could, of course, get something in the middle where somebody recognizes that Chuck and Charles are the same, but misses it on the completely different last name and says, we have 2 customers. So in this very simple example, hopefully you can see how this could happen. With spreadsheets storing our data, we could, in in this very simple example, we could have 3 different answers: 1 customer, 2 customers, or 3 customers. And then if you throw in millions of rows, now you have a real big problem. What's the answer? Centralized, anytime, anyplace data. And this could be a big red A here. This could be Microsoft Access or another relational database management system, which is going to tie together many sources into one central place. Then if any one of these offices or people changes my name to Chuck Downing, everybody will see it in one central place. If they change it to Charles, that's fine. They'll all see the same thing, the one customer. Coming back to this slide, this big red number here, 32%. Studies have shown that 32% of corporate information is stored in spreadsheets. And again, spreadsheets are wonderful, but it's become a problem when it becomes all over the place and needs to be combined. So that's why we're doing this. Let's actually get into the program itself using this small example. At the beginning of every class, I get 2 spreadsheets. One tells me who's in my class. This comes from my NIU, Blackboard. I get your name, your Z number, your major. And then we start doing the class, and eventually we take a quiz, and I get a spreadsheet out of Blackboard that tells me your name and your quiz score. Let me open up Excel here. I have these files as examples. There's the testing, that's the quiz score. Here's the one with your major. And we need to move that over so you can see it. And what we see all the time with business professionals, if they say, okay, let's say the dean says, hey, what did the marketing students average on quiz 4? Well, I'm the owner of the business here, and that's a question about my business. I need to be able to answer that. So what we see people doing is saying, well, I got the majors, so I can find my marketing majors, and I got the quiz scores. So I'm going to copy this next to this. Then I'm going to start looking at Z numbers. Those are the same. Down to here. So now I've got to delete these cells. And again, I should probably research why that's bad, but I don't. These are the same, these are the same. And I'm clicking or taking a ruler. I've got a problem here. And this becomes a mess. You're smart enough to know why. The students who begin a class, it's not the exact same set who take a quiz. Sometimes students are sick, they miss the quiz. Sometimes students have dropped the class, they add the class. You get the idea. So these become not the exact same, and now we're sitting here with a ruler copying and pasting. We have a headache, we waste time, and we make errors. If you find yourself in that situation, the light bulb should go on. Maybe I should use Access. So let's go show how to do that very briefly. And you will have more sophisticated examples in subsequent lessons, of course. So I go over here, I click on my tile, and Access makes you name the file first. So I ask for a blank desktop database that says, give me the name. All right. Let's call it Access Example. It says it exists because I practiced it. And when this comes up, it gives you a table automatically. I'm going to close that, but let's talk about vocabulary just briefly here. In Excel, what we used to call a column in a database, or in this case, Access, is called a field. What was called a row is called a record. And what was called a spreadsheet is now called a table. That brings us into the relational database world. So what I want to do is get those 2 spreadsheets, the one from the registrar that told me your major, and the one from testing services, which told me your quiz score. And those will now be called tables. And a lot of my students like Access because it only has 4 tabs up here as compared to Excel with its many more tabs. To get stuff externally, you can imagine we use the External Data tab. I'm going to grab an Excel spreadsheet. I browse to it. It says, where is it? Let's go with the registrar file first. Click through a little wizard. The first row does contain the column headings. I want to pick my own primary key. What is a primary key? Relational databases use something called a primary key, which is a unique identifier. It is a field, in this case the Z number, which uniquely identifies each row, in the case of a database, each record. As an NIU student, your Z number is your primary key. No one else has it. It is unique to you. In the United States, your primary key is your social security number. Call this table registrar. And when I'm finished, you see in the object tray here, I have one object. Still the same file name, access example, one object, the table registrar. The table has 2 fields, Z number and major. As far as records, 231 records. So 231 students in this case. I need the other one that gives the quiz scores, so I import that Excel spreadsheet, and now it will become a table. Basically the same thing, just different vocabulary. I want to pick my own primary key, and again, it is Z number. Call this testing. Now you'll notice my object tray has 2 objects, 2 tables. And the reason Access is called a relational database is because it has the capability to relate tables one to another, or to tie them together. We do that through Database Tools, this Relationships button. I double click on both tables, and then it says, and then here we have to tell it how are these tables related. You must have a common field to relate tables. So in this case, the common field is Z number, and we're going to drag one to the other and then release, double check it, and click create. And you can see they're now actually tied together. These tables are related. That's great. And then the final step in this intro is the payoff, the ability to answer questions. And we get that in the Create tab through something called a query. Query is fancy database name for question. We're going to use both tables. So again, I double click on both. And then using these 6 rows and a 7th, which I can get by toggling on this sigma up here. And my preference would be that they would just leave that there, but I do not make the Access software package. I would always just leave that there. It's simpler. Now I have 7 rows. Using these 7 rows, you can answer any question that your data supports, which is incredibly powerful. You can answer it quickly and accurately. So what did the dean ask us? What did the marketing majors average on quiz 4? So I need the major, and I need quiz 4. I double click on those and it puts those fields in. This exclamation point runs the query. And if I run it now, I get every single major and every single quiz 4 score. On the Home tab, the data sheet view is what I refer to as the answer view. That's what happened when I clicked on that red exclamation point. The design view is where we started, where we're building the query. And you don't have to do the drop down. You can toggle back and forth like this. But the dean didn't say give me every major. He said marketing majors. So that's what this criteria row is for. I type marketing here, Run it again, and now we just have the marketing majors quiz 4 score. Wow, that's powerful. The dean didn't say, give me every quiz 4 score of every marketing major. He said, give me the average. So now I turn to this math row, what I call the math row, which I got by clicking on this sigma, total row. I go under quiz 4, hit the drop down, and pick average. Bang. Get this column wide enough, and I can tell the dean the marketing students averaged 15.94 approximately on quiz 4. Now the power here is, you know, the dean's going to come back and say, what about finance majors? And now that you got it set up, it's so easy. We just have to type finance, bang. Finance did a little less well, 15.86, little worse than the marketing students. Very powerful. When I'm happy with this, I close out of it and I want to save it, and I'll call it marketing Q4, give it a meaningful name. And now you will notice still just one file here, access example. We have 3 objects, 2 tables, and now 1 query. If you ever want to change it or something, you double click on it, you can go right back into it, do your changes, and get your answers incredibly quickly. And because Access has done the work tying these things together, you're not using a ruler, you're not pulling your hair out of your head, you're not getting a headache trying to answer these questions, you're getting them quickly and accurately. Fantastic. Students have told me they've gotten jobs just because they had on their resume that they knew how to use Access. This is a powerful thing. Most business professionals know how to use spreadsheets. Far fewer people know how to use relational databases. This gives you an advantage. Let us finish with this slide. You can just read some definitions, but once again, our final goal is to be able to answer questions about our business, thereby forming a foundation for business intelligence and data analytics. Very exciting stuff. This has been your quick intro to Microsoft Access. Again, we will see more sophisticated examples and get more practice in subsequent lessons. Good luck.